Launch of a sort of O'Rourke 2.0 as the candidate aims to regain his footing. Here now to discuss, Jess McIntosh, CNN political commentator. She was the director of communications outreach for Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign, and Kirsten Powers, CNN political analyst and columnist for USA Today. I wanted you both on, A, because you're terrific political analysts, but B, because you're both quoted inside Peter Hamby's terrific Vanity Fair piece about Beto O'Rourke, which I want to quote from now at length. Peter wrote, "The press commentary swirling around O'Rourke has been like this for months. Mockery first, retweet second, sober analysis third. It's a media mess of O'Rourke's own doing, not just because he entered the campaign without a clear reason why, but also because he assumed that his seat-of-the-pants, do-it-yourself style campaigning in Texas would translate neatly into the hothouse of a national campaign against a different set of opponents and an always open, always on press corps that's as responsive to the demands of progressives on Twitter as they are to voters in Nashua and Council Bluffs." That's an encapsulation, I think, of what the last 2 months have been like for the former Congressman Kirsten. So what does he need to do tonight?
Well, I think that he needs to, first of all, it's great that he's doing the town hall because I think it's a forum that he does well in. And so I think for him to be engaging a little more on the national media scene will be helpful to him because you don't get as much bang for your buck when you're just going out and campaigning, which is what he's been doing. And obviously that's really important and he needs to be going out and spending time with voters in the early states. But if he wants to reach a broader audience, which is what he needs to do at this point to kind of break out of the pack, then deciding to be kind of above cable TV and above the national media, I just don't think strategically was a great decision for him.
What O'Rourke supporters will say is, what do you mean this is his first town hall? He does town halls all the time. This is just the first one that you all are carrying. We're doing more than carrying. We're hosting it, Jess. But he has a point in the sense that he does do town halls. That is how he interacts with voters. But for some reason, he's been reluctant to do it on a bigger stage.
Well, I think it has to be both. You have to be able to do or just like Kirsten's saying, the early state, meet the voters, intimate town halls. If you really crush it in those settings, do it on the national stage too. We're still in the stage where only the most diehard political followers, watchers are actually tuned into the 2020 election, but they're not necessarily in Iowa, and the media is not necessarily in Iowa. So when you have that many potential voters who are watching the national media to see what candidates are doing, not appearing in the national media cuts all of them off. I mean, one of the only things that I think is good about how long this process is going to be is that it gives us time to course correct. And I think that that's what he needs to do tonight. And he seems to understand that that's something that has to happen. So I'm excited to hear a little bit more of a rationale for his candidacy, why he's running, a little bit less of that seat of your pants, I'm born to do this, that we saw in his initial Vanity Fair rollout.
You know, it's interesting, Kirsten, that Jess said course correct. My question then would be correct what? And you're quoted in Hamby's piece as saying you had dinner with the candidate and his wife some time ago, and were left with the impression this is someone who should run for president. But then once he launched, you had questions. Where did those questions come from, Kirsten?
Well, I mean, I just was surprised because the person that, a lot of people have mocked is not the person that I had dinner with. So, I thought he was extremely grounded, extremely thoughtful, very impressive. And, for those his wife was there, for those who have criticized that relationship, I didn't see, they obviously have a great marriage and it's very respectful. And I think that people have kind of taken that campaign announcement video out of context in a way that's honestly pretty disrespectful to his wife. But then what we saw sort of after losing his Senate race, he didn't seem very grounded, frankly. I think that he seemed like somebody who was sort of wallowing at a time that he actually, yes, it's disappointing to lose a Senate race, but you're now this hugely famous Democrat that a lot of people love, including Barack Obama, by all accounts. You should be happy. You shouldn't be sort of wallowing in the way that he was. And so that kind of made me wonder, is he up to the task? Now, I wasn't writing him off. I wasn't saying, let's forget about him. I just was surprised because it just didn't really seem like the person that I had dinner with, and I thought that he, yes, it's disappointing, but let's move on and move on to the next thing.
You know, Jess also pointed out in this piece, you know, Beto O'Rourke is not a woman. He's not a racial minority. He's not gay. And those groups were all represented within the Democratic primary field. Is that a challenge for him in this? And what do you think is his platform for success tonight and going forward?
So I think he has to be able to talk to every faction of the Democratic base, and of course that includes all of those groups that you just mentioned. I think what happened when he announced on the national stage was that a lot of women took especially, not just women, but especially, took a look at the field and said, there are women running for president who have never lost a campaign and could never say that they were born to do it, joke about raising their kids, all of that kind of thing. So I think there was a resistance to his candidacy at that point on behalf of a lot of women, myself included, who had been huge fans of watching his Senate run. So what I want to see him do tonight is be a little bit humble in coming into the race and tell us why you think that we ought to vote for you to represent our interests. Really make the case. It can't be about destiny. It can't be about introspection. It has to be about what you can do for the American people if you're going to compete with the really well thought out policy proposals of some of the women who are already running. The only thing that concerns me is that this 2.0 relaunch is going to take another week or two of a media cycle away from Kamala Harris's plan for equal pay or Elizabeth Warren's rising support with black women. We saw a lot of media saturation when he first got in, and I'm worried that we might be getting to do it again. Although I'm absolutely watching tonight and very excited to see it.
In 5 seconds or less, Kirsten, he has a path, you think?
He has a what? A path? Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No. I mean, the idea to like write anybody off at this stage of the campaign is crazy. It's not. This is going to cycle through, and I don't think until we actually have debates, we're really going to be able to see who is going to sort of rise to the top and become the real top tier candidates.
And he will be on that stage. In fact, yesterday he made a note of the fact he's been doing debate prep. Jess McIntosh, Kirsten Powers, thank you so much for coming on and putting to life the Peter Hamby piece that I thought was so interesting. All right, Beto O'Rourke joins Dana Bash for a live CNN town hall from Des Moines.